A couple of weeks ago, I just posted a video on the Sony A9 and whether I feel it's worth it in 2025. The camera had been sitting in my camera bag for like 2 years untouched. So it's been on my mind to part exchange it for a long time. I was just undecided on what I want to part exchange it for. I could go through my long list of considerations, but I ultimately ended up on the Fuji X100VI. The obvious reason of why I would want it is I want something a bit more compact. I wanted something a bit more discreet for when I go out, and I have considered the Fuji X100 series for many years. I've never owned a Fuji X100 series, but I have shot the X100S, and I really didn't like that camera. At the time, I felt it was slow. The APS-C look wasn't giving me that shallow depth of field that I typically like. So over the years, I've just skipped past these cameras, just never given it a second look. I did actually purchase a Sony A7C II, which is what I'm shooting on at the moment for this specific reason of having a full frame compact camera. When I am usually out and about, the lens I have fixed to it is a 35mm f1.8. But I do feel that the lens protrudes quite a lot from the camera. Over the years, I have kind of flip-flopped between APS-C and full frame, and I typically always do land back on full frame. But because I've never owned one of these Fuji X100 cameras and I do hear the reviews and the hype, I kind of want to see for myself if I can actually live with one. So this is not going to be a full-blown review, it's just going to be my discussion about the camera. If you've reached my video, you've probably seen many more before and know the specs inside out, so I would assume you're just here for my thoughts on the camera. So there's nothing more to it, let's just get to unboxing. The camera actually came out about a year ago now, and the X100 Mark V was being sold at a premium on the used market, so it was really hard to get hold of. I still think that even today, the X100 Mark VI is still on back order. As before, this is a used one that I picked up on MPB. Overall, from what I can tell, it is actually in excellent condition, which is what it was graded at. As you can see in the box, there's not much to unpack. It was just a camera strap. The camera battery was actually in the camera itself. The camera, the USB-A to USB-C charging cable, but there is no charger in the box. Now, before I actually purchased this camera, I did actually watch a load of YouTube videos on this camera. There was a particular video by Kyle Meshner, which I actually found very insightful in the sense that he talked about things that he wished he knew before he bought the camera. I did actually find his video very helpful because it did actually ease the whole buying urges back then, but clearly it didn't cure it because I ended up buying it anyway. It did make me aware of a couple of things, like you don't get a charger, the battery life is slightly weak, so you need to get more additional batteries, that you can't actually fit a filter onto this camera without an adapter onto this first. So if you are considering this camera, I would actually recommend you watch that video first. But overall, all of those things were mentioned and it did make me aware of it. And ultimately, it didn't deter me from buying the camera. I haven't actually owned a Fuji camera since the Fuji X-T1, and that was many, many years ago at this point. So there is going to be an adjustment period with this camera, and I will follow up with a video in a couple months' time to actually give you my final thoughts on the camera after I have spent some good amount of time with this camera getting some shots with it. I will be doing a comparison with my Sony A7C II, which is what I'm shooting on at the moment. So if there's any specific testing comparisons that you want me to try, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to add that into the video. And before I finish the video, I did actually just want to go through a couple of the accessories I had to purchase for this camera. So as I mentioned before, you don't get a charger in the box, and the battery is actually rated to be quite weak. So I actually purchased a K&F camera battery and charger pack. So in this pack, you do actually get a USB-C charger. It connects by USB-C and micro USB. There's your USB-A to USB-C cable, and you get 2 batteries. And I also got a K&F quarter black diffusion filter, which is also a circular polarizer. Now, the video I watched from Kyle Meshner, he actually uses a short stash filter, which wasn't really readily available here in the UK. But after doing a bit more research, it seems like a common setup with a lot of these cameras. People are using the black diffusion filter to get that misty look. So I figured, why not hop on the trend and actually just see what it's like for myself. But as before, you can't actually install this directly to the camera. So I did actually have to buy a filter adapter as well. Now I'm actually really keen to start shooting this camera because throughout my photography career, I've kind of steered away from that filmic look. You could argue my style's a little bit clinical. I just always try to aim to get the image technically correct. True to life and standard color rather than an artistic tone. I did actually try to buy a few preset packs in the past which emulated some film looks, and I just wasn't sold on it. It was something just kept leaning back towards standard picture profile for me. However, you always hear about the Fuji colors. I'm actually going to try to challenge myself and commit to shooting JPEG on this camera with one of the film simulations, and let's see how I get on with this combination here. So as before, if there's any specific test you want me to try, let me know in the comments below. Just watching.